You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYPC.
CYTV
Here on the Daily Signal.
Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. Very good to have you this evening, and may we just get right down to the news. Without further ado, new footage has surfaced. This is by a media group that had sent in footage to the British Broadcasting Corporation, the BBC, who analyzed the individuals in the video, confirming that the guy assaulting the police and committing, well, what appears to be about 6 other federal crimes is Alex Pretti. So we were told that Alex Pretti, he was just innocently standing in the middle of the street, outside a coffee shop, maybe selling lemonade and scones, maybe directing traffic, you know, like a kindly crossing guard outside the elementary school. He was just standing there, maybe whistling God Bless America. And then these ICE officers showed up, and maybe they were Border Patrol officers, who know? And they were singing Erica with their swastika armbands, and they tackled him, and they shot him 39 times at point blank range, and then they pepper sprayed him after. It was just terrible. Execution, criminal. The Nazis are here, you were told. Just an innocent, lovable ICU nurse. The whole floor made another floor pose where they all did a moment of silence and faked crying into their hands earlier yesterday. Well, now we have additional footage because CNN had reported that he'd broken a rib in an altercation with ICE. And some of us scratched our chinny chin chins and said, why would you break a rib in a prior altercation? That's a painful injury. Our comment section specifically said the last time they broke a rib could barely take a breath, much less go out and do some more protesting. So then we get a little bit more information here. So here's the footage. I'd like you to see for yourself Alex Pretti with the Immigration Customs Enforcement officers. I believe this is 11 days before he was shot.
This is a moment the news movement filmed on January 13th in Minneapolis, showing a man who appears to be Alex Pretti interacting with federal immigration agents 11 days before Border Patrol shot and killed him. Our footage was analyzed by the BBC, whose facial recognition technology confirmed his identity to a 97% degree of accuracy. On the morning of January 13th, our team received a tip that federal agents were blocking a street at the corner of East 36 and Park Avenue in Minneapolis.
All right, so what they have played already is essentially the full chunk of the spiciest stuff. So then they go back and they kind of walk through piece by piece. Alex Pretti, in this particular situation, is not doing legal observing. He's out in front of the pack. And we'll take this step by step because, again, I really think it's important for us to actually look at the facts, look at the details, and then get what we can out of it. So right there in that tan jacket right in the front, that's Alex Pretti. In front of him is a Ford SUV. So he's yelling at it because ICE has blocked off the street. That's why the ICE vehicle is there. They are blocking traffic access to the street. Why would they maybe be doing that? Well, there are a lot of traffic rammings that are going on, and attempted murders and situations in which you might have someone who tries to park their vehicle in front of ICE to prevent them from escaping. So what you have here is ICE, and what looks like, trying to prevent another Renee Good situation from occurring, taking the extra step. Well, Alex Pretti and the group of totally just legal observers, just documenting, wink, wink, behind him, he doesn't care for that very much. So he gets a little closer to the vehicle. He's yelling, he's screaming.
This is a moment the news movement filmed on January 13th in Minneapolis.
Then he gets up in front, he starts screaming a bunch of colorful words. Then he spits at a federal officer. That's illegal. You can't do that. And by the way, Mr. ICU nurse should know you are not allowed to simply chuck your bodily fluids or any other kind of fluids at people. That is not allowed. So that would be violation number 1. Now he's very, very angry. Again, this is just total friendly neighborhood ICU nurse right here. So then he responds because he's mad that the spitting didn't rile them up. So he wings back. He does a little karate move, a little wax on, wax off, stand to the floor, Daniel-san. And then he does a nice kick to not the taillight. He misses the first time and kicks the bumper of the Ford. Then he kicks again. And this time he shatters the back right tail light. Okay, boys and girls, if you're counting at home, he has now participated in aggravated assault, obstructing a federal law enforcement, the destruction of government property, vandalism, aggravated battery. We're up to 5 crimes right here, right now that he has committed 11 days before anything else. Now, I'm not going to try to pause the footage at the right time. Others have pointed out that they believe that they see he is also carrying his firearm in the back of his pants in this as well. So as to the argument that he was, bringing the gun to do things as Kristi Noem had originally insinuated, according to this footage, that does not appear to be true at all. But again, you have an individual who has clearly committed 5 violations of federal law, 2 misdemeanors and 3 felonies right here. Now, ICE is decided, okay, Buckaroo, you want to play? Let's play. And this is where we get to some rather interesting stuff, because as this footage has been shown online around the media sphere already as it broke about an hour and a half, 2 hours before the show, the common complaint from those over on the left is, well, why didn't they arrest him? Hang on a second there. Whoa, 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 whoa. Are you suggesting that immigration customs enforcement officers should be arresting American citizens? I was assured, I was promised that was bad. They weren't allowed to do that. They're not a law enforcement agency. But you know, and I know, that if an arrest would have been made here, if they would have gotten out of the vehicle, they would have gotten on top of him, they would have put on the zip ties, they would have put on the handcuffs, done a little Derek Chauvining maybe, then he would very likely still be with us today. And, unless he had a bunch of fentanyl in his system. Anyway, here's the ICE officers deciding, you want to play? You got it. So we have played stupid games. They then grab him. He then turns away to run away from the officer. So this is not cooperating with law enforcement. That's another crime, believe it or not. He's trying to run. That's resisting arrest. That's another crime. He then does a little reverse donkey kick. It's very exciting. Really terrible judo. I'm not sure that Brazilian jiu-jitsu is going to let you perform that one for Carnival. But we'll allow it. He then turns around because his momentum has been slung like David in the sling. And then the footage cuts away. Now, later on in their recap of the footage, and by the way, they're explaining how they obtained the footage. They're not actually going over, what's going on in the particular video through some of this stuff. They put him on the ground, and then the camera operator, the legal observer, starts going through what I call protester recorder syndrome, which is where they perform their best interpretation of someone going through severe Parkinson's. And don't get mad at me for making that joke, by the way. That's actually the legendary Michael Fox often made that criticism of journalists, that he said, man, their hands shake worse than mine do. Can't keep the camera on the actual arrest that's taking place. If we pause it again, we will see that they are trying to put him on the ground. He is resisting arrest. Then pepper balls, a little bit of tear gas, a little bit of the old spicy lung seasoning and flavoring enters the scene. And he's not arrested. Now, there are 2 things that I want to point out here, right up front, right off the top of the bat. At this point, I have seen all that I need to see regarding Alex Pretti. The entire situation right now revolves around what was going on before the cops showed up. And then we can talk about whether the officers were justified or not in their use of force, and then whether or not it was an accident or whether it was intentional. When when after the officer shouted, "Gun, he's got a gun," they started firing. And that is currently being investigated. The Trump administration is making it perfectly clear. In fact, Trump himself is making it perfectly clear. He wants a full investigation, and he wants to see it. But what was Alex Pretti doing beforehand? Was he just standing in the street, little American Airlines, the exits are to your front and to your side, and doing a little friendly waving on? Or, as we saw in the Signal chat messages, was he documenting and harassing and obstructing and blocking traffic of one of the black SUVs that the Signal chat sent him to go investigate? Judging by this prior behavior, the innocent, friendly, shucksy doodle, he was just tending to veterans and just, he was just a real lovable, friendly guy. Well, when you look at that footage, the answer becomes a resounding No, this doesn't stop people like Senator Elizabeth Warren, though, from getting out and doing the pearl-clutching radio crew. We got to send you to commercial. That clock in the FCC world is a terrible thing. We're going to continue on the live stream. No commercials over here. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Here's Elizabeth Warren doing her best stalwart, resolute, Alex Pretti whitewashing. No Kunta Kinte scarf. No George Floyd scarf this time, but we'll go halfway there.
The people ICE grabbed up, the people they shot, are not threats to you and me. They are not violent criminals that Trump promised to go after. They are not, as Trump said, the worst of the worst.
So I would give you a little more credit here, Elizabeth Warren. Now, I despise her, mainly because it took a lot of work to actually get registered for the Bureau of Indian Affairs and actually be listed as a tribal member myself. But for her, who claims to be, 120 or 1024th Cherokee, she's already a liar. We already know this. But for her to say ICE has not actually proven they're going after the worst of the worst, yes, they have. In fact, they make much ado. They do a lot of hullabaloo, a lot of hoopla over each and every person that they arrest who happens to be a predator, child trafficker, etc. But she's going to make this claim.
No, these are our neighbors. They are our friends. They are our colleagues. They are people who treat us when we are sick. The risk is not from them. The risk increasingly comes from out-of-control ICE agents who can't follow the basic training manual that our local police, our state police, and our National Guard are all trained to follow.
So again, she's complaining about ICE. Border Patrol was the crew on scene there. It takes very little research to be prepared to make some kind of a public statement like that. She's going to say, and she articulates for another 3 minutes with haltering stutters that would be perhaps seen when someone was eating oatmeal in their local nursing home. Elizabeth Warren decides this is the time to say it's all of these shootings. And one of the things that she's referencing is the Associated Press report that there was a third shooting. We had Renee Good, we had Alex Pretti, now we had a third shooting, this one down in Arizona. Well, remember yesterday when I said I would not be surprised if this ended up being not an innocent legal observer, but one of the human traffickers or smugglers that are consistently seen in that part of Arizona along the border. And wouldn't you know it? Gee whiz, here you go.
Breaking news on the shooting involving a man and a Border Patrol agent near the U.S.-Mexico border. This just came into our newsroom. 34-year-old Sahuarita man now faces federal charges after police say he shot at a U.S. Customs and Border Protection helicopter near Aravaca.
Shooting at a helicopter. Ah, yeah, don't we all? Okay.
Prosecutors say that Patrick Gary Schlegel is charged with assault on a federal officer.
Okay.
Prohibited possession of a firearm and transportation of an illegal alien.
Human smuggling? Wait a second. Incredible. Incredible. I too am shocked. And the left is going so far over their skis on this. And not just in this way. Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois, he decided to do the dumbest thing of them all regarding this particular situation. I really, really enjoy this. He went to FedEx Kinko's, as all senators and representatives do, because they got to get out the posters and the easel. And he printed a little poster and got out and made a big speech, like a 9-minute presentation. Jerry Dunleavy sent this over to me. Incredible.
I'm going to show a photo of that scene.
You paid for this, by the way. You, the taxpayer, have paid for him to print this and rant about this for 9 minutes to an empty room and C-SPAN like 3.
It's graphic, but I'm afraid it's necessary to appreciate the horror of the moment.
Wait a minute.
This photo shows the last second.
Hang on.
Before the ICE agent killed Alex Pretti.
Wait a minute. Oh, wait, that's that AI photo that's been repeatedly debunked by everybody. The headless ICE agent with the robot leg and the arm growing from his boobs. And the pseudo-Asian ICE officer above him who has like a weird mullet beanie. Incredible. Well done. All right, we got to bring the radio crew back. We've got some more to talk about on this nonsense. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Don't y'all go anywhere.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
Yes, I regret to inform you that the Democrats in this country are indeed doing the mess around. So this comes in many flavors and varieties. There are plenty of calls for violence still, and we'll get to that a little bit later. Elliot Foran, a candidate for the Democrats for Ohio's Attorney General, just going with the Democrats, little strategy of appointing the most or nominating the most violent people they can find to be their attorney general candidates in various states across the country. We'll have to talk about that later because first, Ilhan Omar was giving a stunning press conference yesterday. So she did a couple of, very, very important things. She got out, she did a little candle vigiling for Alex Pretti, which again, a bit strange. One might say that we feel the need to get out and do the really weird, like Saints candle vigil thing. But anyway, here was this. Again, standing there, and her staff is recording her from 36 angles because it's all a photo opportunity. Yes. Do you feel it? Do you feel the emotion? Well, then she held a little town hall. And the town hall went sideways rather quickly when an individual, a dude who looks rather disheveled, got up and rushed Ilhan Omar, made it all the way to Ilhan Omar, and then sprayed her with a mystery substance. Here's what that looked like.
Secretary Kristi Noem must resign or face impeachment.
Okay, so a couple of things happen really quick here. He comes up, he sprays her. Now, I have not actually had the attention span to sit down and actually script out what he says. I'm sure it was exciting. She then starts walking towards her attacker. Okay, let's pretend for a second that this is not staged at all. It's very real. Just for the sake of this argument, all right? If someone attacks you with anything, whether it's some kind of a liquid substance, whether it's a physical thing, don't care. I don't care if it's a wiffle ball bat. Do not walk towards the aggressor unless the thing that you are carrying in your recently produced from your hip right hand is your neighborhood's friendly firearm for self-defense. Do not, if you're a congressperson, walk towards the aggressor. That's dumb. That's like bananas and rice dumb. But I digress. We'll let her continue because he gets enveloped in a wonderfully soft, sweet bear hug. There is a man over in the back in a really nice orange suede jacket. That's not really germane to the video. I just thought man's kind of styling back there. Oh no, wow.
I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. Wow, now everyone starts standing up and moving towards them like they've just joined the church, and now you got to go shake their hand up at the front. You want to get up there first so you can leave and head to Los Amigos in Newcastle for some divine Mexican cuisine.
Oh my God, he's crazy.
Oh my gosh, he's crazy. Oh wow, exciting. Okay, now a lot of people have said this looks really, really, really fake and staged. I'm going to level with you. I don't know. And I'm going to level with you one more. I'll double level with you. I'll para-level with you here. I don't care. I don't care whether that's staged or not. First of all, the guy who rushed her to spray something on her, it turns out, according to the forensics team, that it was apple cider vinegar. So I can only assume that it was Bobby Kennedy, Mr. President. She needs to cure from diabetes or something. I don't know. She sprayed it with apple cider vinegar? I thought at least you'd hit her with some holy water or something. I don't know. Maybe you wanted to bless her? You hit her with a little cheer wine from the Carolinas, God's gift to cherry soda, maybe? I don't know, something. I'm not entirely sure. Who knows? But rushed her, sprayed her, exciting times, neat. It took her about 3.5 seconds to break out the fundraising campaign for it. Amazing. Anything that happens over on immediately, fundraising campaign text, it's Ilhan. Last night, I was attacked at a town hall meeting. A man rushed up to me and sprayed me with an unknown substance. Hold on, we need some music for this. From a syringe. Thankfully, my security team acted quickly to take him down. And then she got to do two things. So first of all, she got to say, I'm a big, strong, tough lady. I'm a survivor. I'm reminded of the famous Norm Macdonald quote. If I ever get attacked for something and say I'm a survivor, I want to say it's for something good and not, being sprayed with a syringe of apple cider vinegar. Ooh. Number 2, she expresses her thanks for her security team. Again, assuming this is real, that security team sucks. That's awful. You let the guy accomplish what he wanted to accomplish. If you are at some kind of an event, there should be a security officer, very basic stuff. You're some kind of a public speaker, your security should be posted at the entrances, along the back middle, on the opposite side near the back, near the aisle where you're to speak, and then someone in the front row up near where you are speaking. So that if anyone does one of those George Bush shoe throwing moments, or anyone wants to do one of those Ronald Reagan where he, jumps up and goes, "Sorry, Mr. President," and then gets tackled, you get to him before he makes his way up to the podium and to Ilhan Omar. Because if that was a gun, she's gone. And on that note, I want to make this clear since there's been some confusion. If this man would have been shot by her security, it would have been his own damn fault. If you rush a congressperson, if you rush federal law enforcement, if you rush Secretary Kristi Noem, and you, in a very tense situation, put yourself in front of law enforcement and then start violating federal law in an intimidating fashion, you are playing stupid games and you just might win a stupid prize. So just so we make sure the standards are all set there. So anyway, Ilhan Omar's real issue, though, are allegations around Est Crew LLC. So the reason I'm having trouble pronouncing this is it's lowercase e, capital S, lowercase t, capital C, lowercase r, u, LLC. So this is an LLC, some kind of California-based winery linked to Ilhan Omar's husband, Tim Minette, a political consultant, through his business partnerships. Here's the issue. According to some of the reporting and some of the kind of on-the-ground scene people driving out to supposedly where this business is, it doesn't exist at all. A completely different business is in its place. The business phone number's disconnected. The emails don't work. The website's not real. But she filed it as a $15 million worth notice on her campaign finance documents over the last 2 years. So I'm noticing here what appears to be what some might consider the old bananas and rice style of Somali fraud. It could be. Further investigation is required, and further investigation is on its way. I spoke to a friend of mine at the Department of Justice this afternoon regarding this, and they are currently looking into this. They didn't give me any details on whether they're sending people out to look at the address. They're reviewing the campaign finance documents, and I assume sending those over to the Federal Elections Commission, and then also to probably the U.S. Treasury's office. Probably put someone from the Treasury on finance crimes on it. We'll have to see. That is not over. So this brings us over to my personal favorite. I'm so excited. I'm thrilled to be the one who gets to share this news with you. All of the other Rush Limbaugh Hour shows tomorrow, you're going to hear the committee stuff from them. Marco Rubio showed up to the United States Senate today and delivered what can only be described as a serious butt whipping to the members of the Senate committee. So radio crew, we're going to send you over to the commercial, and we're going to dive into this a little bit early with some of the best clips over on the live stream. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Radio crew, see you guys in a second. Marco Rubio, excellent stuff, good times, great. Used to be a senator. And so going into any kind of a committee, I knew going into this, they were going to ask about Venezuela, they were going to ask about Iran, but they were also going to ask him about a ton of stuff that has nothing at all to do with the role of the Secretary of State. What did Marco Rubio actually show up to the Senate to talk about? Well, we'll go ahead and let him get started.
Let me just say this. What is our goal going in? We had in our hemisphere a regime operated by an indicted narco trafficker that became a base of operation for virtually every competitor, adversary, and enemy in the world. It was, for Iran, their primary spot of operation in the Western Hemisphere was Venezuela. For Russia, their primary base of operation in the Western Hemisphere, along Cuba and Nicaragua, was Venezuela. In the case of China, China was receiving oil at a huge, about $20 a barrel discount. And they weren't even paying money for it. It was being used to pay down debt that they were owed. This is the oil of the people of Venezuela, and it was being given to the Chinese as barter at a 20%, at a $20 discount per barrel in some cases. And so you had basically three of our primary opponents in the world operating from our hemisphere from that spot. It was also a place where you had a narco-trafficking regime that openly cooperated with the FARC and the ELN and other drug trafficking organizations using their national territory. It was an enormous strategic risk for the United States, not halfway around the world, not in another continent, but in the hemisphere in which we all live.
So I'm going to let you in on a little bit of a secret. Having some friends and then also having been put on the short list, although not having yet been called before to testify before a House or Senate committee, you do a lot of you should do a lot of preparation for appearing before the House or the Senate. My colleague at the Daily Signal, Tyler O'Neill, he's done some phenomenal investigating regarding the Minneapolis church, assault by the agitators, Don Lemon's crew. And when he's been called before Congress to testify on the Southern Poverty Law Center, he does days and days of preparation. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is probably one of the only administration officials I have ever seen appear before the Senate and comes completely and fully prepared to outline why he is there, what he is doing, and then takes questions and answers them. Doesn't just go, I don't recall, or say these random non sequiturs that have nothing to do with anything at all. Rubio steps up to the plate and he addresses, this is why we did things in Venezuela. These were the departments that were involved. These were the assets that were considered. I'm prepared to answer everything you got. Bring it on.
It was having dramatic impacts on us, but also on Colombia and on the Caribbean basin and all sorts of other places. It was an untenable situation and it had to be addressed. And it was addressed. And now the question becomes what happens moving forward. As I've described to you in previous settings and in individual conversations, we had three objectives here. The final, I'll work it backwards because the end state here is we want to reach a phase of transition where we are left with a friendly, stable, prosperous Venezuela.
So then we get into the spice, the good stuff. And by that I mean Cory Booker trying to back Rubio into a corner on something completely different. Angry eyes activated. The man from New Jersey who could go a long time without pooping.
Affirming here that these armed militias are running around suppressing voices. We have an administration that has said very clearly that they're not only going to be lifting temporary protective status for Venezuelans living in the U.S., but instead of protecting longtime American residents, they are, quote, the administration is putting people back on deportation flights and sending them into that madness. Does that make sense to you?
Well, first of all,
now we're going to get into the fun. We got to bring the radio crew back. Don't go anywhere. Cory Booker, he's got the what he thinks is the gotcha. It's the Tony Kinnett cast. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Yeah, I'm afraid that watching any Senate committee, especially where you have people like Cory Booker asking questions, will make you ask, how did I get here? Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast. Radio crew, to bring you very quickly up to speed, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is about to answer a question from the good old Cory Booker of New Jersey on why the Trump administration would possibly be ending some temporary protected statuses, and tries to ask the Secretary of State about ICE. Ain't going super well. Here you go.
Lifting temporary protective status for Venezuelans living in the U.S., but instead of protecting longtime American residents, they are, quote, the administration is putting people back on deportation flights and sending them into that madness. Does that make sense to you?
Well, first of all, the travel advisories for American citizens traveling there and the threats posed to Americans. What you're describing
why lift temporary protected status?
Well, the problem with temporary protective status was it was granted to so many people in such a vast numbers so quickly without proper vetting by the previous administration.
That is very much correct. We've seen this, by the way, regarding Somalia. I got a chance to sit down and do a couple of interviews and then followed up on some of these things, double checking. We didn't even vet many of the temporary protected status individuals from Haiti or from Somalia ourselves. We outsourced them. Somalia, those migrants, we outsourced the vetting of those temporary protected status migrants to Kenya, who their officials openly admit has been an extremely corrupt and failed process. We didn't even vet them ourselves when they were vetted at all.
That there's a real concern that there were gang members that had received TPS simply because of the nation they came from and the time in which they came.
36 arrests in a span of 3 months in 2024 into 2025 were individuals with temporary protected status that were known affiliates of gangs or cartels.
It became so big and so massive. The overwhelming majority of Venezuelans are not members of Trained at Agua, but there were Trained at Agua and other criminal elements embedded in the TPS system. And the numbers were so large that the administration felt it had to cancel the program in order to appropriately vet it through on the individual cases.
Excuse me, Mr. Secretary.
So I enjoy already, you got the two wonderful hallmarks of any committee meeting. They thought they're just going to bring Rubio in and they're just going to browbeat him. Kind of like Hegseth. Hegseth has a couple of quips ready to go. Hegseth is competent in his particular position. When you bring him into committee to argue centuries of military precedent and law, that is not his specialty. That's not a knock on Hegseth, by the way. I don't think that the chair, the Secretary of War, should have to be the supreme expert on every military law or function in the United States. But for the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, right now, a man who has 37 and a half jobs in the administration as it is, he has a very deep and specific knowledge of why the United States is doing everything. And so when Cory Booker asks him, and Marco gives him a very descriptive, clear, and common sense answer, Booker starts freaking out. You can see his eyes widening. They go from teacup saucer to dinner plate in about 3.5 seconds. Essentially, he's about 2.5 frames away from turning in to a Kinnett or a Dixie plate commercial. It's wild. And then he starts cutting, actually, Mr. Rubio, we need to move on here. I've been embarrassed enough, actually. Then, from the other side of the aisle, Libertarian Rand Paul wants to cut in because Rand Paul's very mad. Rand Paul's mad because he made a prediction. And Rand Paul makes the same Tucker Carlson prediction that just so happens to be wrong every ding-dong-dang day, which is that if the United States ever does anything with its military, it's either going to turn into Vietnam or Iraq and Afghanistan. And that's not true. And Rubio points that out. Anyway, here's Rand losing his marbles over something that, by the way, is far more supported in the Democrat, Independent, and Republican polling than practically any issue right now in the United States.
What it is, and let's vote on these things. But I think we're in violation of both the spirit and the law of the Constitution by bombing a capital, blockading a country, and removing elected officials. And we certainly wouldn't tolerate it, nor would I if someone did it to us.
Well, we didn't remove an elected official. We removed someone who was not elected, and it was actually an indicted drug trafficker in the United States. And there's
so you can already hear the liberals say, okay, fun little conversation here. Just a quick one. The idea that the United States is the only country that has to pretend everyone else is sovereign and just like us and wonderful and all of their laws are true and fair and just and we have to sit there and be told by a foreign dictatorship how we do things, and they can take American prisoners and they can sell oil to terrorists and they can seize billions of dollars in infrastructure and U.S. assets, and we have to take that because, they had an election. What rules are you citing? With this fantasy, get your nose out of the Ayn Rand book and wake up.
Our laws, indicted under our laws. Look, Bolsonaro says that Da Silva is not really the president of Brazil.
Indicted under our laws is what Rand says. Oh, yeah, well, he's indicted under our laws on drug charges. Yeah, because he's sending those drugs to the United States. You do realize that if I decide, hey, I'm going to defraud the state of Washington, and then through various means here from my beautiful studio in eastern central Indiana, I defraud the state of Washington, guess where the charges are going to be filed? The freaking state of Washington. This is not difficult.
Our president said Biden wasn't really the president. Hillary Clinton said in 2016 Trump wasn't the president. So you have these arguments, and I agree with you. It probably was, and most likely was, most assuredly was a bad election. He wasn't really elected.
I love mental gymnastics. I love them. Fantastic. Okay, well, the Hillary, and I mean, I'm sure he wasn't legitimate. Well, then, yeah. Excellent. By the way, then we get to Brian Schatz. Now, Brian Schatz, no, Allison, that's his real name. You don't have to censor that on the air. He is the senator from Hawaii who's not Mazie Hirono. By the way, this is one of the first times that I don't have Mazie Hirono to dunk on. She took She normally takes the crown for the most stupid individual on any committee. But Senator Brian Schatz of Hawaii got into it with Marco over conspiracies and rumors. Yes, rumors about Cuba.
You're just going to move on to a couple of other issues. Your comments that Havana should be concerned about the Maduro operation is fueling speculation that this administration will turn its sights to Cuba next.
What he's asking, he says, so you said, hey, your little client state of Venezuela that was helping prop you up because it's a client state, it should be worried because we just removed its ability to be a client state. And then that fueled a lot of speculations and rumors. I know. I'm one of the people who uploaded a video with an interview with an individual who says, yeah, Cuba's probably next for some type of leadership change in this theater. That doesn't mean that like I get a chance to ask Marco Rubio questions about it. I wish. Secretary Rubio, you want to come on over here? You know, we'll ask you about any of the jobs you'd like, man. We're game.
Will you make a public commitment today to rule out U.S. regime change in Cuba?
Regime change?
Yes.
Oh, no, I think we would love to see the regime there change. We would like to, that doesn't mean that we're going to make it change, but we would love to see it change. There's no doubt about the fact that it would be of great benefit to the United States if Cuba was no longer governed by an autocratic regime.
I mean, but you know what we mean by regime change. We don't mean, I wish someone else were in charge. When we talk about regime change, we're talking about using the power of the United States, usually kinetic power, but
I enjoy this. So this is called moving the goalpost. Moving the goalposts in a conversation is when you make a term, you make an argument, and you don't like the answer that is given, and so then you change the terms of the argument. So Rubio makes it very clear. He says, yeah, I'd be all in favor of some regime change. Doesn't mean we're going to do it, but we are interested in seeing regime change. Because the question that was asked is, you said, does this mean that Venezuela should make Cuba nervous? And Rubio's like, yeah, there might be some regime change. And then Brian doesn't like that. So he says, no. When I say regime change, actually, I mean us going in there and like, getting Nikki Haley and we set up a government and we do some Iraq-style nation build. No one's talking about that.
Often other kinds of coercion. And,
he's looking for support.
And I'm not even saying that that's always not in our interests. I'm just...
Man's just flubbergasted, Speckledorfed. That man is struggling. Get him a Gatorade. By the way, just a small tangent here, because Secretary Rubio does a phenomenal job of explaining that there are a multiplicity of acts and laws that govern how the United States is able to do foreign policy. That is not just, okay, everyone, Congress is just going to vote on this and before the president does anything. We have 200 years of history that are never talked about in this country, ever. We never have adults focusing on or studying on history from 1801 to about 1925. But that 200-year span, though, up until about 50 years ago, is not understood. People don't know the laws of the United States that govern how we territorially expanded, the relationships we have with other nations, why the Secretary of State is allowed to do this but not this. Rubio understands this quite clearly.
Coercion, and I'm not even saying that that's always not in our interests. I'm just saying, I'm not asking you whether we would prefer a different kind of government. I'm asking whether you are trying to precipitate the fall of the current regime.
Yeah, but
now Rubio is going to say, okay, I've actually read history. Here's some laws, some acts, some things that happened. You have no idea what you're talking about.
that's statutory. The Helms-Burton Act, the U.S. embargo on Cuba is codified. It was codified in law, and it requires regime change in order for us to lift the embargo.
Okay. We have not...
Jeepers. Interesting stuff. It's almost like you can read before you open your mouth. Cool things we're learning here every day. Radio Crew, we're going to send you off to the commercial. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Senator Tim Kaine from Virginia, the man who is not Tim Walz. He was Hillary Clinton's Tim Walz. Less tampons, more crazy, like Doc Emmett Brown hair. Like, great Scott, I'm a terrible Senator, Marty. He also got into it with Rubio. And they don't actually treat these committee hearings as serious. They don't. They're all for the social media clips. And here's proof of it. This is the Secretary of State and the acting National Security Advisor, and also like the chief, one of the chiefs in charge of keeping the National Archives and the Capitol architecture stuff in cut. Is that what Tim Kaine asks Rubio about? No. Instead, we get into memory games. Here you go.
Last question is this. You talked about the speech in Davos. Here's something the president said in Davos. I'm helping NATO until the last few days. When I told them about Iceland, they loved me. They're not here for us on Iceland, that I can tell you. Our stock market took the first dip yesterday because of Iceland, so Iceland has already cost us a lot of money.
Now, by the way, he has misquoted him already. So the president did only say that a couple of times instead of, he's reiterating the subject every time. Now, some people have made the case that the president was joking because he'd already called it a chunk of ice before. And also, the president got it confused. He could have said Thailand. He could have said Scotland, for that matter. Here's Rubio's response.
The president repeatedly mistook Iceland for Greenland, right? We're not mad at Iceland. They haven't cost us any money. The president just mistook the two countries for each other, correct?
Yeah, he meant to say Greenland, but I think we're all familiar with presidents that have verbal stumbles. We've had presidents like that before. Some made a lot more than this one.
Nice try. Thank you.
Nice try. What do you mean? No, that's true. I'm going to level with you. And I said this during the Biden administration. I didn't make all of the hay on earth every single time that President Joe Biden said a word wrong. I had an issue when he forgot dead congresswomen who were my friend. When he completely spaced that Jackie Walorski, whom he was honoring, had just died and was looking for her in the room. Yeah, that was a problem for me. But like getting a word wrong every once in a while, that didn't bother me so much. It's a stressful job. The presidency of the United States has the power to gray anyone's hair, apparently, but Trump's. And if you mispronounce a word every once in a while when you're the president of the United States, okay, sure. I mispronounce words all the time. I know, because you guys send me emails about it. It's okay. But hey, we have very little time with Marco Rubio. That's what we're going to spend it on. The last engagement for that I've been saving, the lady who has now taken the crown for the dumbest senator of the committee floor, is Senator Tammy Duckworth. I despise Senator Tammy Duckworth. I really can't stand it anyway when a veteran uses their military service as a cudgel against others. I find that rather disgusting in general. But as far as Tammy is concerned, she goes at it with Marco Rubio, and it is a classic representation of the fragility of the liberal in Congress right now. They can't actually debate anything. They can't argue anything. They threaten violence, or they just get into an interrupting match and a lot of pearl clutching. That is a 5-minute exchange, and we're going to watch that after we send the radio crew out to their kind of final hurrah for the evening, because it is definitely worth your watch. But it's have a slight heft. So we'll come back to that here in just a bit. What I do want to share with you is that the the bananas with rice girl on the Somalia side of things, well, she's now been arrested.
So I'm Somali. I'm proud to be Somali. To me, being Somali isn't just eating bananas with rice. It's a lot. It's like
Yeah, we're going to talk about that because things are changing rather quickly. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. We got to bring the radio crew back from commercial. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast. Now, there are so many people that we could just tear right into here at the end of the show, also from today, that are not really getting the bulk of coverage, but are very worth your while to see. We're going to get to some of these. We kind of teased a little bit earlier. The famous Somali lady who described what it means to be Somalian has now been arrested. So we're going to talk about her. But first, I'm so excited. Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, all of the blue city mayors are out yelling and grumbling about ICE and about Border Patrol. They're mad. They're unhappy. They're grumpy. They have severe indigestion. And some of them are starting to fill their oats a little bit. They're starting to get a little big for their britches. And given that Brandon Johnson, his governor is J.B. Pritzker, who has the biggest britches around, that's quite the feat. Well, he gets a little cocky at the National Press Club. And this is a disaster from start to finish. Enjoy.
It's unfortunate that Greg Bavino's, that his legacy will take time for people to understand how nasty of an individual he really is. It's powerful that we have been able to effectively push back.
It's powerful that we have been able to push back. I make fun of Hakeem Jeffries and his speaking mannerisms. This is brutal. I had students that didn't show up having read the material at all, who gave full presentations that were more articulate and took less time than this man trying to answer one question. And he's on C-SPAN too. I don't know why I'm pointing that out. It's not even main C-SPAN. I mean, this should be an easy, relaxing, no problem answer here.
At local levels, as well as in the courts around Gregory Bavino's activities. His dressing, his whole package.
His dressing? What, like French, Italian? Honey mustard?
It is so familiar that I believe that it was blinding for some people. That it's clear, there's two things. One, it's clear that the far right in this country, that they have not accepted the results of the Civil War.
What?
You serious?
The Civil War. What is Gregory Bavino and his dressing? It's very powerful you've been able to touch on his activities. The right has not accepted the results of the Civil War.
And that they have longed for a rematch to have a republic that subjugates and subjects individuals to a permanent lower class.
Incredible. I mean, just stellar. Chicago, you really can't pick them. I think people have been far too harsh on Beetlejuice. She may have, had her problems, but at least she could speak in full sentences that didn't require you to take a nap and an Adderall between the beginning and the end. So excellent stuff there. Pramila Jayapal is also out doing some yelling. Exciting stuff, really good. The House Progressive Caucus gets really upset if attention's not on them every 15 and a half seconds. So they got yell about it every once in a while.
I voted for every Al Green's put out articles of impeachment. I've always voted to bring them. What I'm saying is that we don't have the votes right now. And I would sign on, I've signed on to articles of impeachment, but we got to look at the now. And so listen, I respect everybody. You disagree with me, I don't mind.
So town halls, the left is talking about how brave they are for going and doing town halls. One of the things she's asked is, why aren't you impeaching people? And she says, we don't have the votes, but I'm voting for them, but we do and we don't. We got to look at them. And when we do, we don't, then it's like you don't know what you didn't know, you know. Incredible. Just beautiful, beautiful stuff. And this brings us to the arrest of the very, very, very brave Nasra Ahmed, who was trotted out as being the pinnacle of Somali culture. Like the House Democrats brought her forward to tell everyone what her Somaliness was, like what it was all about. The Department of Justice has now charged this lovely individual for obstructing ICE operations. Again, obstructing federal law, obstructing federal arrests. That's illegal. But anyway, here's the bananas and rice lecture, which I don't think we've ever actually played on the show. You may not know what it's like to be a Somali. So here you go. We're gonna show you.
So I'm Somali. I'm proud to be Somali. To me, being Somali isn't just eating bananas with rice. It's a lot. It's like it's an interesting thing. It's very hard to describe what it means to be Somali and what it means to be American, but it's like a cultural fusion. It's kind of like the bananas and rice.
Yeah, true. I also know that whenever I'm swinging by Panda Express and I'm asking them for half and half, fried rice and bananas, that then I contemplate how Somali I might be. It's not just bananas and rice. It's more like, bananas with rice. Exciting, beautiful. This is the backbone that built Minneapolis, don't you know?
You know, people don't really see, like, you know,
The man behind her looks so confused. It's like students the first day someone puts letters in math. The kid's just over there having an existential crisis.
It's you know, people don't think, oh, you can eat bananas with rice, but that's what it's like to be Somali and
Yeah. I just want you to know that if there is someone who attempts to bring her bananas and rice for a meal, that will be reported on by MS Now as a hate crime. I want, now that she's, in custody. So excellent stuff. Thrilling. Now I do want to go back up something I didn't get a chance to talk about earlier. There, on the impeachment side of things, Chuck Schumer is also continuing to go all in on the impeaching Kristi Noem thing. Radio crew, seeing the clock, it is time for us to let you off into that sweet winter breeze. So we'll catch the radio side tomorrow. We're going to continue on the live stream, youtube.com/Daily Signal, the Rumble side as well. We'll catch you guys later. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. All right, now that they're off to the wonderful FCC regulated commercial time, Chuckles Schumer, he's also going after Kristi Noem. He's going to get her.
It's outrageous that Kristi Noem still has a job in the administration after federal officers murdered 2 American citizens in just 2 weeks. And it is even more disgusting that on each occasion, Kristi Noem lies about what took place. For the good of the country, Donald Trump needs to fire Kristi Noem at once.
Okay.
Noem is a liar. Noem is incompetent in her job, and she must go.
You can't be the guy to make this argument. I'm sorry. Also can't be Lisa Murkowski either. Can't be Susan Collins. Nope. When you have made your entire platform defending individuals who were medically dead and in office, or who just decided to leave randomly to get a prostate surgery, or who left for maternity leave as a gay couple, or who probably committed a series of very serious crimes and were extremely incompetent, like Alejandro Mayorkas. You don't get to play this game. You're just not selling it.
Many Republicans here in Congress agree that Kristi Noem has lost the trust of the American people.
Again, Tom Tillis, Lisa Murkowski, you're going to have to find something more appealing here than tap water.
Donald Trump needs to recognize that the tide has turned against her and that her presence does far more harm than good at this point.
Again, the point that he's making may actually be true. It may. I don't know. Has she been an extremely effective head of Homeland Security? She has done some really good things. She's also made some things a lot worse. I've said it before. I think, and you know what, if you want to call this sexist, I don't care. I think that a strong man who is no goofiness, who doesn't do any of the nonsense, who doesn't go do photo shoots, who doesn't yell at people because he doesn't have a special kind of jacket before he gets off the plane. I'm talking a no-nonsense individual. You make him the head of Homeland Security. I think that's what Americans want. I do. Just like Americans want a certain kind of individual to be the pilot of their plane. That's what I would expect. Tom Homan, I believe, is more that kind of guy than Kristi Noem has been. But is Chuck Schumer the guy to make that statement? No. No. You can get on any kind of bandwagon, any train that you want here. Right now, if you think that this is the moment for Chuck Schumer to shine, no, absolutely not. Now, again, regarding this entire, the killing of American citizens, because they're just now finding they can use the word American citizens, this is given the rise, as I told you earlier, for Democrat candidates for different offices. For example, Ohio for Attorney General, Elliot Forhan, just getting out there and saying wildly dangerous stuff.
Hi, this is Elliot Forhan, candidate for Ohio Attorney General. I want to tell you what I mean when I say that I am going to kill Donald Trump.
Excuse me. Excuse me? What you mean when you say you're going to kill Donald Trump? Hold on here, Sailor Sam. Back up a bit. I think we're going to have to throw this one into reverse like a Lowe's forklift and beep all the way back down aisle 14. Come again, parlez-vous?
I mean, I'm going to obtain a conviction rendered by a jury of his peers at a standard of proof beyond a reasonable doubt, based on evidence presented at a trial conducted in accordance with the requirements of due process, resulting in a sentence duly executed of capital punishment. That is what I mean when I say that I am going to kill Donald Trump.
Not exactly hiding the ball, are they? I don't even have any commentary for that. There you go. Democrat candidate for Ohio Attorney General, ladies and gentlemen. Show me the man, I'll show you the crime, I guess. And just incredible. All right, for a little bonus tonus this evening, we're going to have to switch over to Senator Tammy Duckworth and Marco Rubio. I say have to. I'm really looking forward to this. This was one of the greatest moments of the day. I rarely watch clips twice over, especially if I know I'm going to watch them here with you guys. I did for this one because truly, it is just a summation of everything the left is running on right now and why it deeply annoys the American people, up against Marco Rubio, who has, anytime that he feels privy, gone on any of the Sunday shows and thoroughly wrecked people like Margaret Brennan so badly that some are reporting that if you are quiet some nights in Washington, D.C., you step outside your apartment or secretary's office, you can hear Margaret Brennan crying faintly on the breeze. Secretary Marco Rubio versus Senator Tammy Duckworth. Here you go.
Are we currently at war with Venezuela?
No, we're not in a state of war in Venezuela.
Okay, the Supreme Court has described the Alien Enemies Act as a wartime power, our Supreme Court. And before now, the Alien Enemies Act was only invoked during the War of 1812, World War I, World War II, when it was used to intern thousands of innocent civilians. Are you really arguing that the president should be able to wield an internment law?
No, but we're talking about two separate things here. So you're talking about the state of Venezuela or are describing the regime. And we're talking about, but what the president designated.
Invoked the Alien Enemies Act.
I know, Senator, but let me be clear with you. No, but what the president was talking.
I love it already. Already two things. Great, right off the top of the bat. So first of all, we've got a little bit of in the middle goalpost shifting and then some ad hominem insane stuff from Duckworth. So the president, are we at war? Or first of all, she says, are we at war with Venezuela? He says no. She says, but the Alien Enemies Act. That's not where I thought you might go with that particular notion. I didn't believe the Alien Enemies Act. Again, we did, in fact, strike targets in Venezuela. Maybe you go with that. Instead, she goes on the Alien Enemies Act thing and then says, it was used in World War II to intern Japanese people. So is the president like doing an ethnic roundup? Which, by the way, no. And when Rubio says no, of course, she doesn't actually want him to answer. She's on C-SPAN 1, so it's time to showcase all of her abilities and get clips for social media. So she starts cutting him off. If you have questions to ask the questions. If you want to just yell, do a press conference, do a show. Then no one has to do any interrupting back and forth.
About are these gangs and these narco trafficking groups that are waging war on the United States. There's no doubt. These groups have waged war on the United States. They have waged, for example, Train de Agua is not just a criminal gang presence in our street. It is a criminal gang directly responsible for narco trafficking.
The Trump administration has acknowledged that the vast majority of the men it rounded up and deported to torture under this law had no criminal records whatsoever.
There you go again, leading questions and statements, deported to torture, those kinds of, again, by setting the framework, by shifting the goalposts, and then setting the framework in a leading manner. There's nothing at all serious about this. Nothing at all.
We didn't torture
Independent,
anybody.
over 75%.
Who did we torture? We haven't tortured anybody. We've arrested people that are members of gangs and we've deported them. We don't want gang members in our country.
Independent investigations have found that many of the men were here legally. If the administration is willing to lie about who it's targeting under this law, what protections do totally innocent people have against abuse? Again, I want to ask you, will you advise the president to rescind his invocation of the Wartime Alien Enemies
No, of course
Act?
not. I mean, these are people that are threats to the national security of the United States. But I've described this in hearings in the past, including
So
before
you're
you guys.
saying that we're at war?
We are absolutely, when it comes to narco.
Incredible. So are you saying, so he explains it very clearly. He makes it quite clear what is going on, what the point of the act is, who the individuals are who are being targeted by the act, the extent and the release of the law, the parameters, the precedent. Again, reading history, understanding history. Here you go. Here's the policy. Here's the precedent. Here's the execution. And Tammy, who is not satisfied that Dick Durbin already upstaged her as being Illinois' dumbest senator of the day, then immediately goes, "Are we at war?" Which she's already asked before, but now has decided to go full-on Valley Girl.
Trafficking groups and criminal gangs that are targeting the United States for criminal
We're in a state of war.
There's no doubt about the fact that we're
So then,
confronting them in a war-like setting because they're waging war on
apply, and do the Geneva Convention
They're waging
apply?
war against us and their enemy combatants as a result of it. And the fact of the matter is that we are confronting these irregular groups, and that's one of the great challenges of the new century in this hemisphere in particular. Is
So now he quotes, he says, new century. This is something that should, if you follow kind of the political background of a lot of people who end up in the administration, you can tell when they get on something that they are very well acquainted with, because they start to use analogies that they have previously spoken on. Marco Rubio, in his 2016 presidential run, in the primary, ran on the idea of a new American century. He spent a ton of time becoming very proficient on the relationship that America has with its neighbors and what individual actors and organizations in those other countries are doing to people in the United States. This is a tell. When he says things like this, it is very clear you have just asked a concert pianist about Beethoven, and he cracks his knuckles and then proceeds to give you a beautiful, chromatic, lovely tuned beatdown.
that these non-state actors who possess state-like capabilities in terms of their weaponry pose a grave danger to the United States. I don't think any American would dispute that we have cartels that pose a threat to the national security
with
of the
all
United
of the
States.
other laws of when it comes to warfare. I mean,
so he answered her question. If you're in a committee, this is what I hate the most. So we are halfway there right now with the Supreme Court, but in Congress right now, in the committees, we have cameras all over these things. There are different angles. All the media's got their different pools set up for the best shots here, there, everywhere. And it's become a circus. It's become a fanfare show. They're not actually doing a committee where they ask real questions. When they do closed door sessions, people are often really upset at closed door. Oh, it's behind closed doors. They don't want us to know. Sometimes you do need to get away from the theater. This is theater. There's nothing of substance happening here, other than Marco Rubio showing what it is like when a parent spanks a very bad toddler. But in this particular instance, there's nothing actually, she's not listening to him. In a private conversation, in a private committee, where there's not cameras in your face right then, you ask real questions. Right when I said we're halfway there with the Supreme Court, right now you hear oral arguments, the audio of it, and that's relayed on the news. We're kind of halfway there with the theater. The addition of cameras and the hyper televisation of committees, there's very little in Congress anymore that matters as a place to get things done. It's a place for Jasmine Crockett or LaMonica McIver to take off her earrings and threaten to do a parking lot at McDonald's style street fight with Becky.
And you're saying
she's not listening to Rubio. Rubio gave her an answer. So then she says, so you're saying the president needs to follow all of the other laws of war? No.
Saying that he can invoke this wartime power.
Listen to her struggle. She has all of these telemarketing questions lined up, like, hello, sir, do you have a moment to talk about your car's extended warranty? And then you ask the telemarketer the last time that she went tuna fishing off the coast of Saint-Vagny. She has nothing to say to that. She's flipping through her script. A sweat breaks out onto her forehead.
No, I'm saying, you're asking me, I'm here to discuss foreign policy and what's in the realm of the Department of State.
Well,
I think your questions are better directed to the Department of Justice.
Enemies Act,
but I would tell you that,
which is a wartime, which is something that
but you're asking me a question
that can be invoked during wartime. And it's only been invoked during the War of 1812.
So she starts repeating herself. The point that Rubio is making, she starts asking questions that aren't for the Secretary of State. It is how the United States employs the Alien Enemies Act. The Secretary of State has nothing to do with that. If you want to go yell about how Red 40 food dye is no longer in your pack of gushers, then the person that you go and yell to about that is not Scott Bessent to the Treasury. Because you know what? The U.S. ain't printing money with red 40. Those would be some cool looking dollar bills, I'm sure. That ain't how it works. Domestic law enforcement is not something that the Secretary of State does on the day-to-day basis. Now, I mean, the Schoolhouse Rock had entire songs where you got to learn the basics of the U.S. government. Rubio's trying to explain that to her. She short circuits because she hasn't listened to anyone since 1982. So her brain short circuits and she starts repeating herself over and over again about 1812 as though somewhere describing the British burning down the first version of the White House is how we are going to discover the truth of Marco Rubio.
World War I and World War II.
You're
it's only been
asking me a
invoked 3 times, and this president is invoking it.
Okay, you're asking me a question about the domestic application of a law that's best directed to the Department of Justice.
It's not a complication.
Because
yeah, because there are separate agencies in the federal government. They're very separate. Do you know why they're very separate? Well, first of all, federal and Supreme Court precedent. Number 2, the names on the buildings are different, sweetheart. I don't know how to tell you this, but if you walk into Popeyes and you ask for a Big Mac, they're going to look at you like you're retarded. And at some point, you got to start wondering why you went into Popeyes and asked for a Big Mac. You're looking at the Secretary of State and saying, why are they arresting people in the United States? He's like, we have a Department of Justice for that. Sugar Bush, I don't know what to tell you.
You're asking me something to opine on something that's in the realm of the Department of Justice in terms of its domestic application. I can tell you that the United States is most certainly confronting terrorist and criminal organizations operating in our hemisphere that pose a grave danger.
Look at her. She's short-circuiting. This is what happens when you speak to someone who reads at a 3rd grade level as though you've graduated from elementary school.
Danger to the United States. Anyone who believes that gangs that flood our country with fentanyl or cocaine are not threats to the United States is not living in reality and certainly does not reflect the opinion of most.
So now she's appearing. She's trying to look haggard. She's trying to look as though he is upsetting her because he's talking. I love being the bearer of really funny news. You're in a committee hearing. And in a committee hearing, you ask questions of the witness, and the witness provides you answers. To answer these, unless they're slapping it out in Morse code on their kneecaps, they got to talk to do so. And when he answers her questions, she looks as though this is the worst thing that's happened to her since they closed down the local Dog and Suds. I understand that. Dog and Suds was an American institution. But still, I mean, the Secretary of State talking in a committee hearing, yeah, that's the point, Mildred.
Americans.
The president already said that he was ready to put American troops in Venezuela again. So we're at war right now.
Man, what a shift. Boy, she abandoned that trolley problem real quick, huh? She ran from that room. Real quick, shifting back, boots on the ground means we're at war again. She's really going for this.
So if things don't go well with the Chavistas you've empowered,
when did the president say he was going to put troops in Venezuela?
A military option, what is your criteria for returning to a military option and putting boots on?
Well, I don't recall the president saying he was going to put troops in Venezuela. Where did he say that?
I'm asking you, what are your...
But that's what you said. I didn't remember the president
has already said that he was ready to put American troops in Venezuela.
No, I think the president has said that he retains the right as commander-in-chief to protect the United States against any imminent threats. Maybe that involves troops. Maybe that involves air power. We hope.
Rubio does something really clever here in the response to a stupid question. So first of all, Rubio knows here are the statements that the president of the United States has made publicly. You've got Trump. He's a loose cannon. You never know what Trump's going to say. Maybe he'll say that we're going to put boots on the ground. Maybe he'll say, I'm going to tweet an American flag. You don't quite know. No one's ever seen anything like it before. And Rubio knows this. So he's like got a little cheat sheet out here. Maybe he laminated it. Maybe the FedEx Kinkos that's making AI images for Dick Durbin. Who knows? He's got a little cheat sheet. These are the things that the president of the United States has said. And Tammy Duckworth decides that she's going to participate in something called imagination. And then Rubio's like, well, the president hasn't said that. And she goes, uh-huh. And then Rubio does a classic favorite of mine, which is, let's pretend that you're right here and he has said that. Here's what he's actually said that might be close to it. Like, I'm going to give you a little bit of I'll throw a bone your way. And again, she can't handle this. Short-circuited.
But we don't anticipate that being the case in Venezuela.
I worry that you're playing fast and loose with our nation.
Well, I just gave you testimony here.
I just want to conclude by...
Yeah, but I just gave you testimony of how well things are moving forward, not as fast as everybody would like.
Yeah, but you also said that in 6 or 9 months, if things don't go well, you're going to have to do something else. And the president's already said that he's not ruled out.
Oh my gosh, you mean if things change, you might have to do something? What?
Well. how the turntables...
I can't believe it. You mean that someone said that they might be prepared? Great example of this. Here at my desk, because I am in a studio in which individuals have made certain threats before, I have a firearm. It is a loaded firearm with a round in the chamber. Now, because I have told you this, I am prepared if something happens. Does that mean that if NPR, which is apparently still open, wrote an article that said, really gorgeous show host, Tony Kinnett, says he'll shoot people. Is that accurate? No. Making the point that you are prepared for eventualities, depending on those eventualities, is not saying you're going to do something. By the way, in the same way, this is a rebuke of Kristi Noem. Kristi Noem saying he had a gun, therefore he was going to use it. No, you don't know that. You can say by obstructing federal law enforcement, Alex Pretti gave up his right to be a concealed carrier because he was no longer peacefully protesting. He was participating in a riot. In Minnesota state law, you can bring a loaded gun to a protest, but you cannot bring a loaded gun to a riot. Very different and very distinct. She could have said that. She didn't say that. And therefore, that's a problem because she made assumptions. And as we saw in the video of Alex Pretti doing a whopping six different, at least, crimes, a couple of misdemeanors, a couple of felonies, and having the gun apparently in his back waistband, he brought it before and hadn't used it. The distinctions do matter. And the point that Rubio's making here is you're saying that just because Trump said, you know, a lot of things change, maybe we'll do something, maybe we won't, have to see what Venezuela's going to do. Yeah, it's called playing your cards close to the chest because you're asking Venezuela to do things. You're saying, hey, we took out Maduro, maybe you behave. If you behave, you get a Klondike bar. If you don't behave, maybe I build a Trump hotel on your corpse. I mean, that's how Trump does things. Taken is that, oh, Trump said he's going to build a hotel. Oh, Mike, oh, quick, Jimmy, get the pearls, clutch them tight.
The military option. And you've also just said that, yes, we are at war. The president has wartime powers.
Every president retains the power to use military to protect.
So it's reasonable for me to ask you.
And I gave you a very specific example. Every president retains the right to defend the United States against an imminent threat. Yes, if there are just give you an example, Iranian drones deployed in Venezuela that could threaten the United States, we most certainly will address that, even if it's located in Venezuela. But we hope we don't get to that point. We don't expect to get to that point. I don't think that we're not trending in that direction. That's a fact. But that said, you know, on the one hand, people
are worried that this is a president who engages in yet another forever war, Mr. Secretary. We don't need to be in another forever war. And that is the path that we are going towards. And let me just...
I love it so much. So he says, evidence, honey, evidence, data. What do you have? Saying we're prepared. Just because a Boy Scout has a rope doesn't mean he's about to tie every knot known to man. Come on, help us out here. You can do it. I believe in you. And then she says, well, people are worried. Ah, yes, my favorite. The classic left-wing argument of I feel something, so therefore it must be true. Stellar stuff. I'm having a really, really good time watching this. That does go on for like another minute. We're not going to, sludge through all of it because here at the end, I wanted to show you a little something inspiring. We don't get enough inspiration here on the Tony Kinnett Cast. I was going to talk about the S&P 500 tonight. Not that it did hit 7,000. It finished on kind of a lower close. I was actually going to talk about the industries represented in the S&P 500 kind of moving out finally of the healthcare service industry fields into some really, really cool stuff that could signal that the United States is about to really engage in the second space race. But I'm not going to talk about that tonight. I'm not going to hit that. We'll have to cover that another night. I want to share something with you that's even more inspiring than the S&P 500 signaling that the United States economy is someday going to be fueled by its push into space. That's pretty inspiring. So what have I got for you that could top that? John Leguizamo. Huh? No applause?
If you follow ICE, unfollow me, don't come to my shows, and don't watch my movies.
Put that on a throw pillow. John Leguizamo, from The Thing. He said, if you follow ICE, don't follow me. Don't come to my shows. Don't come to my movies. Don't show up at my house with flowers. Don't date my mom. Don't do it. The actors and the actresses, guys. Actors and the actresses. I don't have the clip in front of me, but Natalie Portman, who's best known for seducing a child in Star Wars. Natalie Portman. She's really stunning and brave because she said that she's really not proud of the American government right now. I mean, are you ready to just turn everything around? I mean, every time I hear Whoopi Goldberg talk on The View, I'm like, oh my gosh, she once pretended to be a nun. Quick, everybody listen. Don't believe me. Molly Ringwald, who acted in some stuff, she's also out here to tell you how to live your life.
I don't spend a lot of time doing this, talking to you like this, unless...
We can tell, first of all. If you're an actress and you can afford it, teleprompters, guys, teleprompters. They're really not that expensive anymore. Amazon has made being like a fake influencer easy for everyone. I'm currently looking at the camera lens. A little teleprompter has like my screen, my monitor screen right over there so I can see the shot. Then you can kind of read a script. You don't have to do whatever this awkward thing is, dressed up as one of the extras who accidentally wore black instead of purple to Danny Kaye's choreography in White Christmas.
I'm, I don't know, recommending a foundation or telling you to get your kids vaccinated against meningitis.
Can I get my kids vaccinated against looking like a washed up beat poet who couldn't snap their fingers and so they were kicked out for clapping?
But I feel like I can't stay silent, and neither should you.
Awesome. Yes, more of this, please. I love it. I love it. I can't stay silent. No one's giving me attention, says, I got to remember, Molly Ringwald. Like, you've probably wondered where I'm at. Everyone's like, I haven't thought about you in ages at all.
There's something horrible going on in our country right now. And we have one of the greatest countries in the world. And I've always been so proud to be an American. But right now...
She has not, by the way.
This is a fascist government.
Which is why you're free to post these things. Remember that? Like during like Hitler's rise to power, Mussolini, Tojo. Right now in Russia, where the government actually controls the industry in false fronts. China, for example, would actually be a great example of a government that's kind of moved away from communism into kind of a pseudo-fascism. You know all the Chinese journalists and actors and actresses like criticizing Mao, calling him Winnie the Pooh? None of them. Okay, Steve, I'm going to go with actors in Russia who are criticizing Putin. Ah, man, thought I had that one. Honey, you're not in a fascist government. Now, I couldn't think of any movies that she'd been in other than The Breakfast Club. She was also in Pretty in Pink and 16 Candles. Also in Riverdale, which is like Degrassi for somehow even more depressed people. Exciting. The actors and the actresses.
It's not becoming a fascist government. It is a fascist government.
Because you can criticize. All amazing. I'm just astounded. The knowledge of history. And not just the straight actors and actresses, but also the really weird kids that should have been bullied more, who are actresses, like Morgana Ignis. I must be getting older. I have no idea who Morgana Ignis is. It sounds like someone who appears in RuneScape.
I love that people come to the page of a queer, alternative, transgender comedian who is on a bunch of shows involving gay demons and other fucking counterculture type shit.
Okay. When you have had movies, shows, awards, entire cultural movements celebrating an entire month, celebrating the people you choose to sleep with, it is no longer counterculture. And also, I know this is a dude, but like goth girls have been a mainstream thing in culture for a long time now, for a very long time now. Aside from that, also, if someone in the comment section knows what this person has starred in, and they say shows and involving gay demons, see, that's the problem. I'm too busy watching like Friends, How I Met Your Mother, about to watch some Lord of the Rings, maybe. Maybe my wife really enjoys the great British Bake Off, and then the great Canadian Bake Off, which is really weird. I don't really know of a whole lot of gay demons on those particular things. Only gay demons that I'm really aware of are usually sitting in the United States Senate.
And then seems surprised by my fucking leftist politics. Where the fuck did you think I leaned?
I'd like you to lean somewhere else. The song from the Police, Don't Stand Too Close to Me, comes to mind. But the actors, guys, the actresses, the whatever that was, the gay demons, they want to share with you their politics. And it doesn't matter that they're AI-generated photos, and it doesn't matter that the things that they say sound ridiculous, so that even Kevin O'Leary of Shark Tank has to pimp slap you on CNN. It doesn't matter how ridiculous the things you say sound, you're still going to go out and defend them. Live on air, Kevin O'Leary.
Furthermore, there's a reason why we have not seen a resurgence of the Proud Boys.
Okay, we haven't seen the Proud Boy militia lately. There's a reason, she says.
That is because I believe a lot of them are likely made ICE officers. Again, I've said this on the show before, I've not seen any deep dive reporting into who these people are, but they certainly adopt a lot of the ideology, a lot of the tactics, a lot of the violent tactics, a lot of the wearing masks, and it sounds a lot like their founder, what they initially put out, been kidnapped.
Did you just say ICE officers are militia?
Yes, have you not been paying attention?
Yeah.
Yes, I said something very loud and stupid. Were you not paying attention to me? Honey, we all were. We're concerned. We're going to hang the intervention banner. We've already called that one therapist, Neil, from the first Santa Claus movie to come over here and talk to you. That's concerning. You think that the weirdo, like, online, like, militia group that only shows up when the Project Lincoln people want to talk about tiki torches, you think those have all been recruited to become immigration customs enforcement officers?
They certainly mirror the Gestapo.
That's very.
I don't think I'm stretching anything. I think we have seen, what we have not seen, what we have not seen are gang members committing violence. What we have seen are ICE agents
hold on one second.
kill people.
But Tiffany, you're saying that based, you're just making a supposition here.
So there's Abby Phillips doing the old covering for routine. Like, you never hear a person on the right side of the aisle make a statement and someone from the left attacks them, and Abby's like, well, but you're clearly just saying this, right? Abby Phillips, running cover. Well, you're just making a supposition, right? I mean, you're just speculating. You're just gesticulating. You're just photosynthesizing over here, right? Long words, big words.
There's no concrete evidence.
You got to be careful. That's way
there was some supports. There was some
men and women serving the government. We have seen white supremacist tattoos
risking their lives, serving the government,
risking their lives. They're taking lives.
You're calling them Proud Boy militia. Did you say?
So there we have the way. So first of all, I appreciate that when something is being explained to her, she immediately takes it as mansplaining. Her face scrunches up like really, really tightly, very, very angry. And then she follows that up with well, yes, I believe it right now. I don't care if they're white supremacists. Kevin's like, these are law enforcement officers risking their lives. Said, no, they're killing everyone. This one AI photo on Instagram told me John Leguizamo said something at his show. Bruce Springsteen sang about it probably.
Well, I did not call them a Proud Boy militia, but I think it's disgraceful that you're sitting here. I'm actually not. But I think that there are white supremacist tattoos on their
white supremacist federal officers.
Yeah. What she said that Kevin didn't have a chance to respond to because he was trying to talk, she was talking over him. She also said they have tattoos. What tattoo are you talking about? What? There are only two situations I know of right now, and I could be wrong. You're more than welcome to share this over either on the Discord or TonyKinnett.com. We have a contact form. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe right now the only two major tattoo stories that we know of are that Secretary of War Pete Hegseth had a Jerusalem cross on his chest, which is just the Jerusalem cross. It's the cross of Christ, and then surrounded by the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, four other smaller crosses. It's just the cross that represents Jerusalem. There's nothing white supremacist about that, even a little bit. It's literally carved into the stones in Jerusalem. No, not even remotely white supremacist. And even if it were somehow the German Iron Cross, that's still used as a medal in Germany. But alas, the other tattoo that is, I believe, been in the stories regarding U.S. people is Graham Plattner, a Democrat Senate candidate in Maine who had an actual Nazi symbol on his person that he then got removed. So are there other, I'm serious, comment section crew, be real with me here. Are there other like tattooed ICE members? Like walking out like, hey, this one on my neck means kill everybody from Mexico, man. You know.
White supremacist federal officers.
Like, where are you going with this? Why would you say that?
I'm going with my eyes, ears, and logic. There have been multiple ICE agents who have white supremacist
men and women working for the federal government, risking their lives, carrying out a mandate, and they're white supremacists?
Yes, and you're a member of a cult, so I don't expect you to have logic.
Whoa.
I think the generalizations here are a bit of an overreach.
Yeah, and let's not make personal attacks.
So, yeah, there you go. Yeah, this was really, really embarrassing. Maybe everybody should just calm down for a second. Touch some grass. Quit saying that you're going to go kill everybody and, we're going to whitewash anyone that ICE tackles because they're out here killing everybody. No, you don't have to do that. You don't. Because when you do, when you get out there and you promise to all of us, you pinky promise, that ICE is out there killing just these innocent ICU nurses, guys. They're just out there slaughtering them. Then we find the footage of these individuals doing rather disturbing things, like committing felonies and other sorts of things. So you don't have to do that. You don't have to get ahead of your skis. You can wait a second, hang on, and relax. And most importantly, if you like the show, like and subscribe. There you go. Get that at the end of the show. So that said, we're going to be back tomorrow for some Thursday antics at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's good to be with you, as always. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. Take care.
Since the founding of America 250 years ago, many things have changed. The homes in which we live, the clothes we wear, the jobs we hold, the conveniences we enjoy. But some things never change. The commitment of husband and wife, the importance of passing along our values to our children, the rewards of service to community and country, the faithfulness of God. Some wonder how America has thrived for so long, and how we can ensure she continues to. As long as we keep first things first, we've only just begun. America, the beautiful.